Can you speak about how ego pulls you out of presence? Just to distinguish between mind and ego.
Okay. So mind is, in a sense, a state of consciousness. I'd compare it to cyberspace. You know how we all play in cyberspace these days? We've just extended, we've reproduced our mind at a cyber level. And so you can play in cyberspace with your computer on the internet. And the mind is like that. It's a huge field of consciousness in a way which is illusory in nature, but nevertheless it's a field of consciousness. And it's made up of an infinite number of thoughts. And whenever you think, you take yourself into the world of the mind. It's literally a state of consciousness in which you dwell when you're in the mind. A field of consciousness. And when you're in the mind, and you go too far into the mind and you're lost in the mind, then the ego basically is the supreme ruler. It runs the show. And the ego likes that. And when you're in the mind, you're in the past or future. You're not present. It's not good or bad, it's not right or wrong. But as you become present, your mind naturally falls silent because your thoughts are past future. So just by being present with something that's actually here in the moment with you, you come out of that cyber world of the mind, out of that field of consciousness which is the past and future, the remembered past, the imagined future, a world of illusion, a world of separation. You come out of that world into an entirely different level of consciousness. Now you're here. You're here with what is here, free of your past, free of your future, free of your projections, your ideas, your opinions, free of your history. You're just here. That is the awakened state. It's an entirely different level of consciousness. Who is here? I am. That's who's dwelling in this state of consciousness called presence. How do you know the distinction between what is presence and what is the mind, or what is the mind and ego? Very simple. And it's very important. Everyone must know this distinction, not with the mind, but at a very deep level. The only thing that is awakened presence, transcendent of the mind and ego, is you utterly present. Present with what is here, and your mind is completely silent. No thoughts. That's it. And at the very core of that is perfect, eternal silence. Perfect, eternal peace. When the mind falls silent, because you're present, it opens a door to an infinite silence within you at the center of your being. Now, why does the ego want to run your show? The ego is not the enemy, but it is a major obstacle to your awakening. The ego comes into your life at a very, very young age, a very early age, into everyone's life. And its role is to protect you in a painful world where no one is present. That's its role. You can't handle it. You're 3 years old. The feelings are too much for you. You can't handle it. So the ego pops in as your protector, your friend and protector. Its first job is to repress all the painful feelings. Don't worry, sweetheart, you're 3 years old. I'm going to repress these feelings for you. And not only that, I'm going to take over your life. I'm going to run your life. I'm going to manage your life. I'm going to develop all sorts of strategies, how you will live and function in the world, to help you avoid the pain and hopefully get these substitute needs met: love, acceptance, approval, recognition. Right? So I'm running the show now, says the ego. And how does it run your show? It runs your show with thoughts. And what happens is that it's not very long before the distinction between who you are and your ego is completely blurred. There comes a point where there's no real distinction. You have no clue who you are and who your ego is. And there's no way to free yourself from the ego's control, because there's no separation between you and your ego. The ego actually thinks it's you and you think you're it. There's no distinction. And this goes on until you die, and then you get born again, and the whole thing is repeated, and that goes on for many, many centuries until the possibility arises in your life of awakening. Awakening out of the story, out of the mind, out of the dream, into the present moment. Then, as you become more and more present, a big space opens up in you. You are that big space. You're a big silent space of pure consciousness. And that means that what happens is there's a space opening up between you and your mind and ego. And so it's from presence you can begin the process of bringing consciousness, awareness to who you are at the level of mind, at the subtle movements of the ego, how it functions, how it keeps you out of the present moment, why it keeps you out of the present moment. So that's why presence is so important. It opens up a space between you and your ego and you and your thoughts, your mind. Now, the ego is very clever at keeping you out of the present moment. It has a bag of tricks. And these tricks are very clever, and all of us fall for the tricks. How does the ego keep you in the past? All it has to do is run by you the energy of resentment. If you buy into it and believe in what resentment's telling you, where are you going to find yourself? Where does resentment take you? In the past. What about blame? Where will that take you? What about anger? Guilt? Good. The ego just runs these energies by you, and we're also ignorant that we just buy into what these energies are telling us, and we believe in it. Now we find ourselves imprisoned in the past. It keeps us in the future with a very, very clever trick that the whole of humanity has fallen for. The promise of future fulfillment. Where's that going to keep you? Future. So the ego's got everyone exactly where it wants us. In the world of the mind, the world of the past and future, where it's in control. Why does it need to be in control? To protect you. You're living in a world where no one is present. That's painful. Does everyone get what I'm saying? The ego is not the enemy. And I'll tell you a secret. The ego is waiting for the true master to arise from within. The ego is programmed to surrender only to the true master. But there are so many egos all around the world looking for an outer master to surrender to, a guru. You get what I'm saying? So the ego is willing to do that to some degree, because there's still hope in that, isn't there? Maybe I'll get to be as awake as the teacher. Maybe I'll be a guru one day. Right? But that's not the true master that the ego is waiting for. The ego is actually programmed by God. And all of this is in service to God. The ego is a servant of God, sent forth into the darkness to keep you in the separation, because God knows that you will want to come straight back to the oneness. So the ego's job is to keep you in the separation. And it has a bag of tricks given to the ego by God to keep you fooled, deceived and tricked, so you remain in the separation. But the ego is programmed to surrender to the true master, arising from within. Who is the true master arising from within? It is the I am that you are. That dimension of you that is of the present moment and only of the present moment. That's the true master arising from within. It's programmed to surrender to the true master arising from within. But it will test you. It's been two things. First of all, it's been so long since the true master showed up that the ego's forgotten that that's what it's waiting for. So it needs a little reminder. But then, supposing you start to wake up, you're getting more and more present, right? Why should the ego trust that? It's been so long. How does the ego know you're the true master? Well, God gave the ego a little test. Test them, says God. What's the test, says the ego? The test of judgment. Run the energy of judgment through them, just like you do with all the other energies. See if you can catch them into judgment. If they believe in judgment, if they buy into the story of judgment, if they get caught in judgment, it's not the true master. For the true master is without judgment. Now, how many of us here on this earth are able to pass the test of judgment? Utterly uninvolved in judgment, no judgment, without judgment. But that's the ego's test. That's why so few awaken. And to pass ego's test, does that mean that judgment should never ever arise within you? No. But if judgment arises, you just notice it, you acknowledge it, you confess it, you're not for it, against it, you let it go. You're not buying into it, but you're not against it either. That would be buying into it also. So as you pass the ego's test, as you deepen into presence, as the ego comes to trust the flowering of presence from within, it will gradually surrender and release you. And then its role in your life will dramatically change. It's not going to disappear. I want everybody's ego to know that. It is not the plan for anyone's ego to disappear, be annihilated or gotten rid of, as many spiritual teachings and traditions will teach you. With enlightenment, the ego is annihilated. That will be a complete obstacle to one's awakening. The ego's role in your life is transformed. It no longer needs to protect you in a painful world of separation where no one is present. It surrenders that old role, which has been very difficult for the ego, and it happily embraces its new role in your life. It knows that you are an eternal being as the true master awakens within you. It knows you're an eternal being. It knows you have no way of participating and functioning in the world of time. Right, Mary? And so it becomes your assistant manager within the world of time. It becomes your partner in the world of time, makes appointments and all those sorts of things, helps you with a shopping list. It does a great job. So the ego is not the enemy, the ego is not annihilated with awakening, but it is transformed. And the ego, you have to come into right relationship with the ego if it's going to surrender. And right relationship is only possible from presence. Now the catch is, if the ego never lets you be present, there's no possibility of the true master arising. So it's step by step, a little more presence and a little more love towards the ego.